Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. So today we're going to be discussing some of the news to do with Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, which was introduced within the brand new Digital Next YouTube stream, which was by Karunratne. Today we'll be discussing cards that Gong Strong might have as one of the original characters within the series, and what he's potentially going to be starting off with. So I had a quick look. The first packs we've got, again from Duelist Advent, introduces about several different superheavy samurais, so I'll be basing it off this and the next challenges, which was the following pack after Duelist Advent. Superheavy Samurai Blue Brawler is an Earth Attribute Machine type level 4 with 0 attack and 2000 defense. The effect, when this card is normal or special summoned, you can change its battle position. It cannot be destroyed by battle. The benefit of this card is not only does it instantly make itself actually face up, which means it can go from attack to defense very easily, but it cannot be destroyed by battle. So your opponent's going to have to do a couple of things to either get around this card. Either they're going to need some piercing battle monsters that can continually do damage through the defense. They're going to have to find a way of negating this effect to be able to destroy this card by battle, or they're going to have to get rid of this by a spell or trap or monster effect. That way they can get through to your life points. It's a decent monster to begin with, and again, I don't think they're going to go too heavy into his strategy for the time being. They'll probably go for the very simplistic combos, even before he started introducing synchro monsters into his deck. Super Heavy Samurai Swordsman is an Earth Attribute Machine type level 3 with 1000 attack and 1800 defense. The effect, when this card is normal or special summoned, you can change its battle position. If a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control battles an opponent's monster, after damage calculation, the opponent's monster's attack and defense becomes 0. The benefit again for this card is as soon as it's summoned, it can change itself to defense mode. Since it has a lot more defense points than attack points, that's always a good idea. The other benefit is if a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control battles an opponent's monster, that means both when it attacks or when it's attacked by an opponent's monster, so it works in both situations. That opponent's monster's attack and defense just get zeroed out. It doesn't matter what original attack points they are or what they've been boosted by, they just turn to 0. That is a fantastic effect, which means you can do maximum battle damage as though you're attacking into your opponent directly. And the final card introduced through Duelist Advent was Super Heavy Samurai Big Ben K. This is an Earth Attribute Machine type level 8 with 1000 attack and 3500 defense. The effect, when this card is normal or special summoned, you can change its battle position. Super Heavy Samurai monsters you control can attack while in face-up defense position. If they do, apply their defense for damage calculation. When I originally saw this card within the booster pack, I mean, I've been around Yu-Gi-Oh for so long, I lost my mind when I saw this effect and saw this monster. For starters, it's a 3500 defense monster. You're not going to be able to get over that very easily. I know there are cards that can, and it can be susceptible to things such as effects which can destroy it, but very unlikely you're going to beat it in battle. The first effect, when it's normal or special summoned, you can instantly change it to defense mode. Fantastic. The other benefit, it lets all your Super Heavy Samurai monsters attack with their defense points. Now again, all the Super Heavy Samurais have higher defense than their attack. There are very few, if any, exceptions to this rule. And even if you think of the other monsters, the 1800 defense monster or the 2000 defense monsters, you're able to do that with them just sitting in defense mode. They're not going to be able to be defeated that easily. I'd also argue that they're protected from certain cards, especially things like Radiant Mirror Force, Drowning Mirror Force, as those cards rely on your monsters to be in attack position to trigger off their effects. I'd say lastly, and the most important part of this effect is, considering this lets this card attack whilst it's in defense mode, you treat this card like a 3500 attack monster. I should also note that the Super Heavy Samurais as a deck has been around for a while. There have been a few cards, including their synchro monsters, that have been introduced within the game, but not some of their starting monsters. Funnily enough, some of the newer monsters and some of the more powerful ones have already been introduced. And I'm guessing we're going to start seeing some of these more basic ones. Perhaps they were planning Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 World for quite a while, and that means they've kind of kept on off of these cards for the time being. That's the only thought process I have behind that. But it gives them a completely different direction to go by. I've faced a number of these types of players, and the normal strategy tends to be to go into Suten Joji, which is to destroy all of your opponent's spell and trap cards, and then maybe sync up into Stealth Ninja. Stealth Ninja is able to attack directly to cause half its defense points as battle damage at 1400. Power those things up with some of the ones like Soul Piercer, which can let your monster attack twice, and you can end your opponent's turn and the duel within a turn or two. Super Heavy Samurai Kabuto is an Earth Attribute level 4 machine type with 1000 attack and 2000 defense. And its effect is, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can change as many attack positions Super Heavy Samurai monsters you control as possible to defense position, and if you do, the ones changed by this effect gain 500 defense until the end of this turn. It's useful if your monsters happen to have attacked using their attack points, if maybe you don't have Big Ben K already on the field, or you just don't have a way of attacking using their defense points. This acts as a way of not only changing those to defense mode, where they're more protected, but gives them a 500 defense point boost. It's a decent monster, but again, I think already some of the more powerful ones have been introduced, and this is not likely to be that useful. Super Heavy Samurai Scales is an Earth Attribute level 4 machine type with 800 attack and 1800 defense. And its effect is, if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Super Heavy Samurai monster in your graveyard, except itself, special summon it in defense position. You can only use this effect of Super Heavy Samurai Scales once per turn. The purpose of this card is just basically to revive another one of your Super Heavy Samurai monsters, and it lets you summon that in whichever mode you want, be it attack or defense. The idea is to just boost your field presence against your opponents. It is very conditional, you do have to be controlling nothing, and you need to already have this card essentially in your hand, or to have been able to draw into it within the turn to trigger the effect. It can be quite limited and very risky to play, and definitely I don't think it's going to see any use. Super Heavy Samurai Soulfire Suit is a level 2 fire attribute machine type with 800 attack and 800 defense. And its effect is, you can target one Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, equip this monster from your hand or your side of the field to that target, its level becomes 5. During either player's turn, you can discard this card, then target one defense position Super Heavy Samurai monster you control. Until the end of this turn, it loses 800 defense, but cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. So the purpose of this card is it does two things. Either you can equip it to one of your Super Heavy Samurais to adjust its level, then hopefully get a Synchro Summon off from this card, or you can use it for its hand trap ability, where it can protect your defense position Super Heavy Samurai from battle, destruction, or card effects for the turn. Either effect is more usable, but I definitely think the one sending from the hand is better. I am surprised if this card hasn't already been introduced, but I'm sure people will start playing this once they're made aware of it. Super Heavy Samurai Soulbreaker Armor is an Earth Attribute level 1 machine type with 0 attack and 500 defense. And its effect is, you can target one Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, equip this card from your hand or your side of the field to that target. It loses 1000 defense. Also, it cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish all Super Heavy Samurai Soulbreaker Armors from your graveyard, then target one Super Heavy Samurai monster on the field whose current defense is lower than its original defense. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to the difference between its current and original defense. So the purpose of this card is it reduces your monster's defense points, but in exchange it does give it battle protection, which is a decent trade-off, especially if you can still equip other things to boost it up. The other thing is, if your monster happens to have a defense point which is different to its original defense points, by sending this essentially to the graveyard, by banishing them, you're able to inflict a lot of damage to your opponent. I think there's one or two cards which actually make your Super Heavy Samurai monster's defense point 0, so it's a good way of basically doing a massive amount of burn damage instantly within a turn. And the final card mentioned is Super Heavy Samurai Soul Bang Cannon. It's an Earth Attribute level 3 machine type with 1000 attack and 1000 defense. And its effect is, you can target one Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, equip this monster from your hand or your side of the field to that target, it gains 1000 defense. During each player's battle phase, when your opponent activates a card effect while you control a defense position superheavy samurai monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then destroy as many monsters on the field as possible, minimum 1, and if you do, both players take 1000 damage. The purpose of this card is, firstly, it does give your super heavy samurai a 1000-point defense increase, which is fine, but it's not the best effect of it. Being able to respond during your opponent's battle phase when your super heavy samurai is threatened by a card effect, just to be able to negate it, destroy that effect, and then wipe out both yours and your opponent's field. If they've got more monsters on their field, you're able to not only do the 1000 points of damage, I know that's going to both players, but it completely resets their field as well as yours. And if they've used too many resources, this can make the difference between you winning within the next turn or potentially losing if they happen to be able to recover or float into different effects based on those monsters. I think we should be seeing at least a number of these different cards, especially at least Big Ben K. It was the key initial card which started it all for his archetype, and even though it was forgotten for some of his synchro monsters, it still had some relevance within his initial duels. I would like to see, in terms of skills, anything that lets you maybe trigger off the Big Ben K a lot easier, maybe help equip some of these equip cards from the deck, or be able to draw into those cards a lot easier by, say, if you've lost 1500 life points, you're able to just randomly draw into one of those, or things along those lines. I would love to see as well additional cards introduced that helped him, and anything story based alongside just generic support for the deck. I know since they're machine type as well, there is generic support that's actually quite handy within Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links already. What do you guys think of these cards? Is there any of them do you think he's actually going to play with? What types of skills would you like Gong Strong to have? And will you be interested in actually playing the super heavy samurais in their, say, revamped older versions? Whatever you think, like the video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe.